Oh, now. Okay. All right. Now that I'm live, I'm going to be waiting. Right now, I'm waiting on Rob to become live with me. I think I'm going to kill the time. I've got a song in my head. I don't know if you recognize what I was whistling just now. But we got a little time to kill before Rob shows up. He's running just a little bit late. Oh, Rob. Whenever he gets here, everybody in the text, oh, Rob. You know, we got to give him a little crap for it. Let's see here. All right, I'm just setting this up so that when he arrives, everything is groovy. Let's see here. Then we're going to have a sing-along because, hey, what better thing to do while you're waiting on your friend to show up for his interview than have a sing-along, especially if it's Rob Lenfesty. Rob Lenfesty is an amazing musician, and he writes a lot of just really amazing music. So let's do it. Let's do it. See, you can't even see the magic that's happening. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see any magic. It's not that much of the magic, but anyway. Here we go. I don't mind you coming here and wasting all my time. When you are all so near, you recognize this song? Kinda lose my mind, yeah. It's not the perfume that you wear. Anybody? It's not the ribbons in your hair. I don't mind you coming here, wasting all my time. I don't know. The song was just in my head. I mean, I think the chat is turned off. I don't know why it keeps doing that. So let me see if I can turn it on with a smile. I don't even know. Does anybody even recognize the song that I was playing? I'm gonna leave that question open. I know there's some classic rock fans in the audience, and you know what's funny? Actually, I played Green Day. I don't know how long ago it's been. A few weeks ago, I played Green Day. Yes, the Cars. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Eric. It is exactly right. The Cars are so underrated, man. I love those guys. So that's some of the first songs I ever learned to play on the guitar. Had to put my guitar down. Let me do a little sound check. Oh yeah, we're looking good here. We're looking. Oh, a little falsetto. I try some falsetto now and then, Yolanda. It is what it is, and you know what was it? The thing is, I have my limitations, right? If I go up, I remember one time I tried to do karaoke, and I was like, maybe I was feeling a little bit more ambitious than I should have. And I went up there and I was like, let's do Journey, man. Let's do some Journey. And the voice has its limitations. Yes, we've got chat. And Yolanda, I don't know if you reached out to me via email, I reached out back to you. And I hope that you get to come to North Carolina because it is going to be awesome. And actually, I'm waiting on Rob right now. He's running a little bit behind. but here in just a little bit, I should be able to, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and just make sure I don't miss him. What's always awful with these Zoom things, because I'm doing it over Zoom, and many of you guys have already told me, and I understand, that I should be using, like, there's every other program that's out there. And so I am going to be doing that. I'm going to be switching over to, I forget some of the programs that I'm going to be using. Good. I'm glad you got my email, Yolanda. Definitely. I want you there. Definitely. We've got 2 workshops back to back. And the way it works for this one at the Mandala Springs location, I don't want to give it all away because I want to talk about it with Rob. But technically it's 2 workshops, but we weave them together in a way that you can really make it into a full weekend. What we tried to do, and eventually we might make it into a full weekend, but what we were trying to do is make it so that it's kind of choose your own adventure. So like, if you just want to go to the first day and do a fundamentals workshop, if you just kind of say, hey, I'm not sure exactly, if I want to commit to the whole weekend, you can do it that way. Or you can also say, hey man, let's deep dive. Let's go all the way in. So yeah, you know what? Yeah, Rusty, you are right. OBS is what I need to be switching to. And actually my wife, for Christmas, she was very thoughtful. She gave me what is the device? I don't know. It's this device that I can use and I push buttons and it can go from channel to channel. It's super cool. The problem is, guys, I don't want to say I'm not technologically savvy, because I think that's a relative term, because I'm far more technologically savvy than some people. And then I'm far, far less than many people. Like Rusty Gaming, you go over to his gaming site and he's got this awesome gaming site that is, you can see him talking and you see and hear him and then all that other stuff. But hey, look who is here. Look who is here. We got Rob Lenfesty. How's it going, my friend?
Oh, it's going so well. Can you hear me, buddy?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was wondering, I was like, okay, is he going to be out at the creek, or is he going to be in his house? So yes, cool. We are just gonna chill, chat, talk. We got some a lively group here already. This is usually a really fun crew on Saturday afternoons. But today's topic, first of all, I want to talk to you just about all the crazy stuff you do, because first of all, I don't get to talk to you enough. And this is just it's a good excuse for me to catch up with you. But also, let's maybe start off and talk a little bit about our event, because I was kind of teasing it already. And so our event is in April, and I was talking about, technically it's 2 workshops. Technically you have to sign up for 2 different workshops in order to get to go to both of them. But really we made it. The reason why we did this, remember when we were talking about this before, we're like, okay, so should we make it into an actual weekend where it's just like, you have to pretty much show up for both weeks? Or he's going to do it. He's going to show you guys this beautiful place. And it's gorgeous. Like that is his front porch that he's walking on. And so, okay, I'm glad. Thank you. I'm so glad this is happening right now. This is a great idea. So Rob, this is where Rob lives. And so you're seeing on the right, you're seeing the chocolate factory. And on the top floor is where we'll do a lot of the event.
I'll take you guys over there.
Let's do it. Let's just do it. Our event is on April 17th and 18th. So, and I say event, there's 2 events. So on the first day is a Wim Hof Method fundamentals workshop. So this is not just for people who have never tried Wim Hof Method. It's also for people who maybe you've done Wim Hof Method for a while. Maybe you've learned, maybe you've been breathing along to some of Rob's amazing videos on his channel. Rob, I've already gotten a lot of comments, a lot of your fans with your breathwork sessions that you have on your channel. And I got to say, for those of you guys who are in my Patreon club, you already listen to Rob's music all the time because Rob writes beautiful. Look at that. That is where we're going to be taking a dip. We're going to be getting into that crystal clear water. And the beauty behind this water, every time I go, actually, I've only been out there one time. So I'm looking forward to coming out. I may even bring the family because they need to see this place. Look at that, guys. I mean, anyway, but he says, everybody make sure to drink as much water as you can from the faucet, because the water and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong or maybe clarify what I'm trying to say, but the water that comes out of the faucet, just like regular tap, is like, what is it? This is like the finest mineral water on earth.
Yeah. So not all water is created equal, which hopefully the people here listening in understand. And the structure of your water is really important. So really doing some research on structured water and spring water that is coming right out of the ground from a pure mountain stream is some of the most highly structured water that exists on the planet. And we have one of the single best water resources that you could literally ever hope for. I mean, there's over 40 springs on this property that are over a gallon a minute, just water flowing at all times. Some of them are like 35 gallons a minute and are actually more like streams.
It's like a geyser.
Just a stream coming right out of the mountain. So here we are.
Okay, yes, this is the event center. This is where we will be doing the indoor portion of our workshops. And I got to say, this is a little bit nice. There's nice decorations. Actually, whenever we were there the last time, oh my God. So what you see right now. Okay, you're currently, everyone, you're looking at his chocolate factory. And you're also looking at, of course, what do you need in a chocolate factory? We need rock climbing. Of course.
Rock climbing, drum sets, and slack lines, obviously. gotta have the slack line too.
And I mean, you got this, and he's probably walking on the slack line as there.
Why not? You know.
So this is why I insisted. I said, Rob, you have to have. First of all, you have to create a YouTube channel. Rob is probably one of the most interesting guys I know. He's got a really diverse interests, and then also some really deep knowledge. So it's depth and breadth at the same time. And every time I get to talk to Rob, I'm like, I usually learn something. And so first of all, I would like you to make a YouTube video about water, about structured water, because that right there, I'm interested just in that topic. Like for most of us, right? Well, it's H2O. It's, what more do you want? Yeah, there's minerals in it maybe or something, but can you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah. So really take a moment to think about water, like really try to separate yourself from the perceived mundanity of just the fact that it's everywhere and, we're made up of it. But when you look at water completely defies standard physics in so many ways. There's the physics as it relates to most things on the planet, and then there's physics as it relates to water. Water seems to follow its own rules. And when you start to look at the way that water structures itself, when you look at how perfect the way that it binds, and the fact that it is one of the most incredible, it's actually one of the most efficient ways to store information too.
Yes.
You can store information in water, and it does so relative. So if you think of our normal information storing systems are binary, so you're creating chains of ones and zeros.
Right.
Water is able to essentially store information. I believe it's a factor of 6, so we're using 2.
Yeah.
So what that basically means is there's no practical limit to the amount of information that can be stored in water. So this is where it comes into the structure of your water.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference in how effectively you're actually able to utilize a lot of the other properties of water that we are starting to understand on a scientific level.
Right.
We have a very rudimentary understanding, but even the rudimentary understanding that we have evidence for shows that the relationship between water, the quality of the water, and how we are utilizing water it has some major implications. With a lot of people out there taking a lot of nootropic substances,
Right.
to build the mind, and eating superfoods, and doing the Wim Hof method, and doing all of
Yeah.
this stuff. If the water isn't simultaneously being really taken care of, I mean, that to me it's like things like the breath. Breath is fundamental.
Yes.
And water is fundamental. So really putting a lot of mindfulness
Yeah.
in how you do water as the fundamental of life. I mean, in so many ways, a human being is water that has found intelligent ways to contain itself and move around on the planet. I mean, that's not an inaccurate way to look at it. Like,
well, recently I was talking to Miles Lucas, who is in the documentary about DMT, the DMT Quest video. It was on YouTube, and they were talking about supraspinal fluid, which flows all throughout our bodies. And we're just now starting to learn more about it, especially in the past few years. And they talked about how it's almost seawater, and I always find that to be, it's like interesting. That's so interesting that this thing that, especially this thing that seems, whenever we move it around and we really get it working, it can cause these amazing psychedelic and spiritual experiences. It's this most foundational. I don't know. There's this connection to water. So whenever you guys come out to North Carolina, to Mandala Springs, I mean, there's drink up, drink up. In other words, enjoy. And most of the time, we're, like, for instance, I've got one of those Berkey filters to try to get all the stuff out of my water, as opposed to trying to just really say, wow, everything that's in it is good. So I drink up. I pee a lot when I'm out there. And so, but yeah, so, okay, coming back to it. And here's the cool thing. When you talk to Rob, like, it's easy to get on these tangents, because I'm like, okay, what was that? And then you learn something like that. So anyway, so we're going to be doing a 2-day event. There's 2 different workshops. There's a Wim Hof method fundamentals workshop, and then there's also an advanced Wim Hof method techniques workshop on Sunday. So Saturday, let's see, when is that? April 17th is our fundamentals workshop. And then Sunday, April 18th is the advanced. But here's the cool thing about it. And we didn't get to, first of all, 2 things we didn't get to do. Last time, we didn't really get to tell people very much about this before the event. So I think not many people were aware of the camping option. So tell us a little bit about the camping option. You showed us the yurt. We kind of looked a little bit around there. So take us through kind of what are some options, how many can we accommodate with camping and that sort of stuff on Mandala Springs property.
All right. Well, one cool thing about Mandala Springs is we've got some yurts and yomes, a tiny house, and a bunch of beautiful campsites right along that stream that I just showed you.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's pretty much as many people as we would ever want to have at any of our Wim Hof Method events. We've got spaces for people to be. We've got campsites, and we've got.
So we could accommodate 20 people.
Oh, we could accommodate 200 people, but we don't want to have that. We don't want to have that many here right now.
Right.
Not yet.
So okay. So if you want to camp, you do need to get a hold of Rob beforehand. I tell you what, in the description box after I get done with this broadcast, I'll make sure to put Rob's information. Of course, I'm going to link over to Convergence Lifestyle. If you haven't already subscribed to his YouTube channel, definitely do. There is just some beautiful, beautiful music, just some amazing stuff. I'm always like, whoa, Rob, wow. And you know what? We didn't get a chance to do last time. Right before I came out to visit you, I broke my finger, so I couldn't bring my guitar. Remember?
Couldn't make music.
We couldn't make music. And this is how Rob and I, exactly. This is how Rob and I, one of the first ways he and I bonded really was we got to play guitar. Well, I got to play guitar. He got to play his piano. And Rob is an amazing pianist. And percussionist and all these other instrumentists as well. And so we got to bond over the just playing music together. And so this time I'm going to be real careful. Okay. Cause I've got to make sure no injuries. I got to make it till April, but I'm going to bring out my guitar. We're going to get to jam. We're going to get to play. And so if you play an instrument, guys, if you want to come out and you want to play an instrument, there will probably be some time where we'll kind of just rock and roll, you know?
That's what we do. Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, though, you want to leave a little bit of room. So camping is an additional, there's an additional charge for the camping if you want to do that. And you just talk to Rob about that. In addition to that, there's what we like to call them excursions, because it's like if you ever go on like a cruise, they call them excursions. I think it's like, you know, you got your workshop weekend. And then if you want to add these little things, for a little bit extra, you can. There's so on Saturday, we're doing the Wim Hof Method Fundamentals Workshop pretty much all day. We'll get done usually around 4:30, somewhere around there. And then in the evening, cacao ceremony led by Rob. And I got to say, this was really a special thing that we did last time. And I think just about everybody joined in. We had a really good turnout last time.
We had everybody. Oh yeah, everybody did. It was great.
Yeah. And if you could tell us a little bit about, and he goes into great detail during the cacao ceremony about what is going into the cacao that we imbibe. But just real briefly, like a little bit about that.
All right. So as Jesse said before, this event space that we have right here is actually on top of let's see if let me turn my camera around and make this easier on all of us. Is on top of a chocolate factory that is down here. And so the chocolate factory, we are making the most nutritious chocolate that exists. There it is. And so we are starting with whole cacao beans, and we are stone grinding them into these beautiful chocolates that have local, actually from this land, certified organic here on this property, herbs and mushrooms in them. So we're making these local, connected, with the full blown essence of this land, and the full blown essence of the highest quality cacao that exists. And we're blending them into a cacao drink, a really highly concentrated cacao drink. And then we're drinking cacao. And if you've never been a part of a cacao ceremony before, it is a pretty phenomenal experience. Cacao itself is one of the most powerful vasodilators that exists. So when people say, chocolate is heart opening, it physiologically literally is heart opening. So what it will do is it'll open everybody up, and then we make music and we have a lot of fun. and enjoy the space that is created around that. It's a really beautiful experience. And it's a good way to really tap in to the magic that is chocolate when it's treated properly and it's used in the correct context. Because chocolate was never meant to be a confection. It was never meant to be this candy poison that people are consuming on a day-to-day basis. It is one of the most beautiful full spectrum food sources. It's a medicine for the heart. It's a wonderful thing when it's treated properly and it's crafted the way that it deserves. So that's what we're doing here.
I remember whenever you taught me about that. And, you know, it's funny, when I was visiting you last time, COVID was not even really a concern that anyone ever really thought about. I took home with me, after I left North Carolina, I took home, I don't know how, basically like a box of every flavor that you offer. I was like, give me as much here, take all my money. I want as much chocolate as I could take. And I gotta say, I was really happy. It was those little treats during like lockdowns and things like that I really looked forward to. I was like, oh, which one am I going to try today? And the thing is, it was different. It wasn't like I felt like I needed to scarf down a whole bar, even though sometimes I wanted to. It was like, you know, I can just take a little bit, and there's really, when it's quality, there's a huge difference. So bring a little cash for some chocolate, because you're going to want some. Real quick, before I get too far, if I saw a question, Peter, if you're still here, Peter, guys, it was a question about my breath mastery course, my online breath mastery course. So just real quick, and then we're going to get back to me and Rob talking, but I I know sometimes people have to get off here and stuff like that. I want to answer the question.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay. So with my breath mastery course, we just finished last week, the very first 6-week breath mastery course. It's all online and it's guided. It was 12 hours of content taking you deeply into a breathwork practice. And so the idea behind this particular course is, first of all, in reality, there's not really, when it comes to breath work, it's not really like there's a one size fits all breath work practice. We all have our different physiology. We all have different goals, situations, thoughts, and we need a toolbox for that. So what we did is we went through 6 weeks of it. And what I'm doing right now is I'm taking all the suggestions and all the comments and everything, and I'm building it into an even better course that I'm going to roll out in about a month. And when I do that, be prepared, because I will tell everybody about it, and I'll probably have like a video to explain kind of the depth of it, some testimonials. Basically, I'm going to roll it out. It's going to be a kind of a much more polished program. So thank you for that question, M. Peter. Okay, all right, here it comes now. So what you're seeing here, guys? Okay. I remember whenever I first met Rob, and and he was first of all, I first met Rob in 2016 in Los Angeles at the very first ever Wim Hof advanced module. It was a training course. It was the very first time they came to the United States to train American Wim Hof method instructors. And so here's this crazy guy, and I remember I was walking, and I kind of leaned back, and there was a tree, and I look over and I see this upside down face, and he's upside down. And I turn around, his upside down face, kind of at face level, and it's Rob, and he's smiling, but it's all upside down. And he's just kind of just hanging upside down in his, from a branch from his knees on a tree. And like nothing. He's like, you know, sometimes it's good to be upside down. It's just
it's crucial. It makes all the difference.
Yeah. And so from then on, I knew, okay, this guy, and I think sometimes when we first meet people that it's like, okay, I like this person. At first I was like, either I'm going to like this guy or he's just going to irritate the hell out of me. I think everybody that I've ever really gotten to where I'm like, yeah, I really like this person, I've always wondered, is he going to irritate me, or is he going to be like one of my favorite people? And I think it was just later on that day, whenever we were at the beach and he was beatboxing with Wim Hof, I was like, okay, he's gonna be all right. It was gonna. I was like, at that point, I wished I had a guitar because I didn't bring my guitar out to Los Angeles, and so I was like, okay. And so whenever we met up in Colorado, whenever we were in the Rocky Mountains, he brought maybe that very slack line. I don't know. You probably have a dozen slack lines.
Yeah, bunches, but yeah.
But it was, I have pictures of him and like all of us trying to do slack, and, some of us were more successful than others. I think I briefly glanced at it, and I was like, I kind of was like, whoop, whoop, whoop. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just watch. But before you know it, he was doing acro yoga with Wim. I think I've got a picture of of you and Wim doing acro yoga. I think you did acro yoga with just about everyone there.
Wim Hof so he had never done acro before.
He had never done acro?
He did a phenomenal job for his first time. He's a great flyer.
Yeah, I actually, that picture is in my mind, the one that you're talking, we have a really good picture of that. And then because Dave Whitley, the Iron Tamer, did you do any acro yoga with him? Because I feel like.
Yeah, I flew him.
Yeah, and that's what I thought. So everybody, sometime I need to get him on the channel. Dave Whitley, the Iron Tamer, he is an old time strong man. And he bends metal bars, and he does the thing with the sledgehammer to his nose and stuff. He's a big guy, very, very big, heavy guy. And it's just a testament to whenever you know what you're doing, like the structures you can do with your body, it doesn't really matter, Anyway, let's talk a little bit about, so going back, see, I get off topic. This is part of, let's dial it back. And Peter, I'm looking forward to having you in that class. Let's see, Rusty, I feel like you can say that about a lot of things. We boil things down to the most potent and then abuse it. A lot of times we do that. That's for sure. I think you're referring to the chocolate. Yeah. And one of the things I learned from you about chocolate was that a lot of the chocolate that we eat is rotten anyway. It's rotten chocolate. And then they get it with like next to slave labor. And then it's not even.
Yeah, I can talk about that.
Yeah.
So 99% of the chocolate out there, I hope I'm not breaking anyone's bubble here, but most of it is produced on these massive cacao plantations that they're having to dump incredible amounts of chemicals on it, both to feed it, because cacao is inherently an understory rainforest plant that lives under these trees that fix all the nutrients into the soil. So if you just create a big plantation of cacao, you don't have any of that nutrient input. So they're dumping nutrients, and lo and behold, surprise, surprise, these plants have no immune system. So there's this fungal blight that is attacking all of the commercial cacao. And so now they're having to dump all these fungicides on the cacao.
Yeah.
And even that isn't working because the fungus is resistant to the fungicides. So you have these cacao pods, the fruit, and they're all black and splotchy, and they're actually using that cacao because they don't have a choice. And not only that, in Africa, where most of commercial cacao is coming from, it's one of the most like blatant uses of child and slave labor, and even at the best, usually more of a indentured slavery where the wages are so low that it's as good as slavery.
It's one of those. It's effectively slave labor. Yeah.
And then they're taking this cacao. So you already have cacao that is nutriently denuded, and it's been abused to all ends. And they're taking that, and then they're putting it in a caustic solution to strip it of everything bitter, and including all of the nutrients.
Right.
And then they're making that ingredient number 3 after white sugar, which is one of the greatest known poisons in the history of mankind,
Breach.
and milk, which essentially eliminates whatever nutrients might be remaining in the cacao. The milk is completely eliminating your ability to actually uptake any of those nutrients. So what you've done is you've taken one of the most profound foods. I mean, in ancient Central and South American cultures, cacao is the fruit of abundance. It is considered like sacred. It is considered really important. And you're taking that and you are literally turning it into a confectionery poison. And what's interesting about this is it models so many aspects of our society. Like you could literally apply this to so many different things in standard Western society and the standard Western way of doing things. So this land, Mandala Springs, Mandala Chocolate, the Wim Hof method, everything that we're doing here is designed to become the antithesis of those really incoherent cultural norms that just no longer have a place in the world that we're creating for ourselves and for future generations.
I love that. And that's the thing. We have to, if we want a better world, we have to create it, right? We actually have to be that builder. And it's one of those things where it takes a lot of people and it takes a lot of faith and it takes a lot of patience. But, it's something where I when I came out to your place and we did those workshops, and I was fortunate enough to be with you on the groundbreaking of that upstairs area. I mean, it was the very first thing we'd ever done up there. And, and actually Alan Spring was on here. I don't know if he's still here, but Alan Spring helped put some of those floor mats down behind us. And, it's one of those things where, I love what you're doing and what we're doing together is, in our own ways. And that's something, for everybody watching, we all have to play a part if you want it to be a better world, or you can, walk in lockstep with everything else. So, and you're so right. So much of what we see is things that start with some kind of a grain of goodness, and then it gets kind of turned into some kind of negative, almost like you said, a confectionery poison. I love how you put that. But if you guys come on Saturday night after our first workshop on April 17th, you can taste real cacao. And this is, I will say, it really, there is a change that you feel. It's not only is it tasty, but man, it was just, I slept better that night. It's really just this, of course, it's a really special ceremony. You get close with the other people that are with you. You share a moment, and especially after a full day of awesomeness, I mean, what we do all day, we're deep in breath work. We conquer fear. We overcome, the cold. And then we have this beautiful cacao ceremony. And then after that, man, we're going to jam, my friend. We're going to jam. So it's going to be awesome. And I'm going to try to bring my family out. And my little boy is a 5-year-old tornado right now, because of course, look who's raising him, but but I think he would really enjoy seeing it out there. Now, one thing I do want to mention before we talk about what's going on Sunday, because there's an excursion in the morning, and then we're going to do some amazing things Sunday. But I will say that weather permitting, I think we're going to be able to do our breath work outside, right? And that's the beauty of April, is that the water's still going to be super cold. That's fresh spring water from the mountains. So you'll still get a nice cold exposure in nature, but then we also get to do some breath work outside and in nature and just really, really connect, Now, is that water is all coming from springs? It's not glacial. It's not like anything like that, is it? Or
so there's a huge, as I told you, on this property alone, there's 30 to 40 massive springs.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's national forest on all sides of us, surrounding us. And so this entire protected watershed that this land sits kind of, you know, it sits at the bottom of this protected watershed. You'll, depending on what's happening with the weather, because down here, up there, you've got completely different weather patterns. In the middle of April, it could be t-shirt down here and there's still snow melting up top. And you could still have ice on the rocks, which you imagine big bouldery streams. As long as it's getting cold enough at night, those rocks are basically holding all of the thermal energy, the cold, and all of the water passing through them. It's like, you know, it's like the water is passing through this like deep ice field essentially. So you'll get super cold water down here, and you might even have a difference between what you're experiencing in terms of the like air temperature and the ambient conditions down here, and what the water is telling us about the conditions up top. Which hopefully we'll be able to see too, because hopefully that's part of our excursions is getting up there. And we're only 4 miles from the Blue Ridge Parkway. I'm not, if any of you are familiar, it's one of the most famous roads in the United States. And one of the most popular destinations on the Blue Ridge Parkway is the top of this cove. It's called Craggy Pinnacle and Craggy Gardens.
Yes.
And at that moment in April is going to be a spectacular time to be here, when a lot of my favorite edible and medicinal plants that only come for a few weeks, they're the spring ephemerals. They only come for a very short amount of time. They're going to be coming out. So hopefully we can eat some wild food too while we're at it.
That is awesome. Perfect timing. Seriously, the timing that would just happen to work for both of us, I'm really excited about. You know, this weekend is going to be a perfect weekend. Now, so Saturday we do the Wim Hof method workshop. Maybe you might have camped the night before, because you can come Friday night, camp Friday night, wake up, you know, Wim Hof method fundamentals workshop Saturday, cacao ceremony, jam session, etc. Just enjoy, and then get a great night's sleep Saturday night, and then the next morning we're doing the next day is the advanced Wim Hof method workshop. But for those of you guys who really want to see this beautiful area firsthand, you're doing a guided hike, right, Rob?
Oh, we're leaving at dark and we're going to go watch the sunrise.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're going to go do breathwork with the rising sun at the top of the ridge.
It don't get any better than that. Like, so it's a nice hike. It's just gorgeous nature, just absolutely beautiful out there. And of course you get to go up there with Rob, and it depends on, you know, you'll probably see the one time I was out there, you know, he would point to one thing. Oh, you can eat this if you want to, let's try this, you know? So all kinds of cool stuff there. Anyway, you go on that, you get back at 11 a.m. we will start the advanced Wim Hof method workshop. And in that workshop, we do a lot of tweaking. We do a lot of talk about, you know, some variations. We do a deep dive into breath. We'll do, that's where we'll do power breathing. So the altered state breath work that you might have, might have heard about from, you might have seen it on some of the documentaries and things that Wim Hof has done. So we're going to do that same style of breath work, and we'll be guiding you through that whole experience. And then we'll also be doing another cold dip on the second day. Now, the second day will also be, sometimes we get inventive as far as different challenges and things like that. But overall, really, it's just so much experiential, and it's just kind of a mind-blowing day. And it's a great way to wrap up the weekend. And really what we had happen last time, and what we see so often, is people saying, okay, what an amazing weekend, but it's not the end, right? It's kind of this, it's not like the weekend, hey, that's that weekend I did Wim Hof. It's something we hope you take with you. you know.
It's community building. I mean, ultimately, when you get together with a group of people and you spend a weekend going through these ordeals and through these tests and trials and really pushing your limits, the goal and the common theme is it creates a bond, and hopefully these are people that you're going to stay in touch with for the rest of your lives, you know, that are going to be there to support and help grow with into the future. And I've seen that over and over and over again with these events. It's a really great opportunity to connect with people who are already like-minded in the fact that they show up here to do this practice. And then beyond that, just, you know, watching the magic of the way people connect and where that goes from there is it's actually one of my favorite parts of what we do.
And this is where, you know, I love the internet. I love the fact that it brings us together. It allows me and you to talk and actually see each other today. And you know, there's a lot of great things, right? You can learn, literally go to WimHofMethod.com. You can learn the Wim Hof method, but there is something special about the community, that communal feeling, breathing deeply together. And let me tell you about the music. Okay. So for a lot of Wim Hof method events, I will take a speaker, or you will see, and I might have a speaker just to kind of have background music, but that's not what we're relying on in this. Anytime we're working together, me and Rob, it's going to be Rob providing amazing drum beats. He's going to be, you can look back there and you can see, well, he's got a full drum kit there.
Yeah, there's a drum kit, but we'll grab this right now for the moment.
There you go.
Just to model.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, and when you're there and the thump, and it's magic. And then after what'll happen is, before I know it, and a lot of times I'll be guiding people through, and like before I know it, he's put that down. He's gone over to his other instrument, or he's gone over to his keyboard and just kind of nice, relaxing music to meditate to. So this is one of those experiences. It's hard to replicate. I do these all the time. I work with a lot of really talented individuals, and this is one of those where it is something. Not only is it so special in the location and the personalities that when two personalities mesh, it's always it's always fun to get those combinations, but also just in the fact that there's so many like little skill sets that combine into just a really cool weekend. And it's like, I did deep breathing, ice bathing. I drank the finest water on earth, had a cacao ceremony. I slept in a yurt last night, and then I was serenaded. I witnessed a sunrise in the mountains, did breath work up there with a bunch of people that I'm going to call my friends from now on, and probably keeping track with. Like, there's so many things to it that, it's one of those where we were going to do another one last year, but with COVID, we couldn't. So what we're going to have to do is make some real plans when I get there, and we're going to have to get out the calendars. Not to mention, of course, Wim Hof method stuff. That's one thing we do together. But in addition to that, Rob, we've got all these other things we want to put together too. Rob does music festivals. And so there's all kinds of things that go on your property out there. Do you have any of those on the calendar yet, or is it still kind of up in the air?
No, because of COVID, there's been a pause in actual scheduling. Yeah. But it seems like, whereas in past years you would really plan and schedule things significantly ahead of time, it seems like there's enough back pressure of people wanting things to happen that we're gonna be filling up the calendar for the spring, summer, fall. There's going to be all sorts of fun things going on here. We've had lots of really beautiful events in the past, and that's not going to change. We're going to keep it going. And I mean, you couldn't ask for a better environment to do it. We've got endless wilderness magic to hang out and grow in. I am doing, so one thing that is happening is I'm doing a 5-week program called the Sacred Naturalist School. And it's 5-day programs over the course of a year. And so that's going to be a lot of fun.
5-day programs over the course of 1 year. Now, is that all one continuous like program, or is it 5 different programs, like 5 different ways to get a hold of that program?
It's one continuous program. So the idea is it connects, it's like a group of people are going to connect with every aspect of, I mean, you're gonna have an intimate knowledge of how to identify plant communities and tracking, connecting to the breath, into the body, into the spirit, understanding how ecosystems move through an entire set of seasons. And
that would be awesome.
Yeah, starting to create that necessary coherence with the natural world that actually allows us to truly unlock the vast potential that we have as human beings. Because if you always exist in the cultural world without a direct, intimate connection to nature, if you don't know the plant communities and the animal communities, and you're not intimately connected to the passing of the seasons and the way that these things work, there's entire realms of what we as human beings mentally and physiologically are designed to do that doesn't get turned on, because that connection is fundamental to a major part of the functionality of the human organism. And so many people in our culture, the vast majority of people in our culture, are grossly deficient in their interface with the natural world. And, you know, if they're getting out and hiking, that's a start, but really understanding, it's like, I see this one particular fern, and I know if I turn to my left, I'm going to see this other plant species that I love, that I know always exists in this community. And there's a coherence, it's not chaos. The way that these plant ecosystems organize themselves, the way the natural world works, it's something that is more like a really refined, deep, multifaceted language. And you know, you can walk around in the woods and you just see a bunch of green things. It's like walking in a foreign country and not knowing a word of the language. You hear a bunch of sounds, but they all just sound like sounds. Slowly over time, you start to build vocabulary, and those sounds become words. Those words become sentences, and eventually those sentences become an entire language, an entire way of communicating. And that, in the case of the natural world, it's a language that not just opens up, you know, the communication centers in your mind that happen when you learn a new language. It's opening up the multifaceted, extrasensory world of human potential. And then that affects our creativity. It affects the way that we look at the world around us. It changes, it adds that contrast that allows us to make choices and move in the world in a way that is significantly more coherent, and high functional.
I absolutely, I love what you're saying here. And guys, just so you know, we will take some questions here in just a second. I see some questions kind of, I don't want to get too backlogged here, but what I want to add is I'm very fortunate also to live in a place where I'm not in nature like you are on your property. I mean, you are in it, you know, but I am fortunate enough to live in an area where it's very accessible to me. I get to go into a woods almost daily or, you know, somewhat regularly, but, you know, I remember whenever the concept of forest bathing was, people were like, forest bathing, right? And it seemed so like, well, yeah, you know, it seemed like, well, okay, you know, sometimes it's like we're rediscovering, like you say, we're rediscovering what it is to be a human all so often. I mean, with breath work, with cold exposure, those are two examples, maybe, but some of the more, what I would consider the things that should be obvious. And the thing is, I would love to take that course with you, because, you know, that stuff fascinates me. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, a great deal of the wilderness is chaos if you don't understand how it's a symphony of all sorts of these beautiful things working together. And you know, going barefoot, which I know you're a big barefoot guy. You know, the other day I was with some there's some physical therapists, and people were looking at my feet and they were just marveling, and I was like, you know, I'm not doing it. It just is what it is, right? You know, and oftentimes it's the same thing. You know, you bunch up your feet in shoes all the time, or you bunch yourself up in a house all the time, or in buildings all the time, and you just need to expand. And I think that's what you're talking about, going out to nature, just to, you know, just to be with it. So when that comes out, we're going to do another one of these, because we'll need to, I would just focus on that the whole time. Real quick, let's do some questions. And I want to be respectful of your time, Rob, but at the same time, I do kind of just want you to hang out with me all day. So you just let me know. We're coming up on, well, we're not quite on an hour, but let's see here. I will read a few things. First of all, Simple Jim, who is regular on this channel, and we'll always love you, Simple Jim. He says Rob equals awesomeness, and he says he loves your breathwork videos. Yes,
thank you, Simple Jim.
Simple Jim is a really good guy. Yeah, that's
stoked to have you in the community, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're absolutely right, Simple Jim. Let's see. And then Rob Aulendar also says, thanks for your Wim Hof method breathing videos. Great channel. Let's see here. I'm just going to skip around. We did have a question from just, his name is C on here. Wim Hof and cold exposure reduces inflammation, right? He says, would it help with asthma and inflammation in the lungs? Now, first of all, of course, Rob and I, we're not doctors, scientists, or astronauts. So, you know, just, you know, take what we say with a grain of salt. And of course, you know, you can't take it to the bank. And of course, for more information, you can go to wimhofmethod.com. But let's talk to this question just a little bit, Rob. When it comes to asthma and inflammation just in the lungs, you know, in Wim Hof method, cold exposure, inflammation, all those things. I think you and I both have trained quite a few asthmatics. I know I have in my practice. Generally, I've seen people benefit. You know, we're never ever going to say, hey, there's this cure, right? But I've seen a lot of people really benefit from Wim Hof method, those who suffer from asthma.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen people reduce, if not eliminate, the symptoms of the asthma in the past, and inflammatory disease in general.
Right.
And the key there, though, is reminding someone who has you know, a history of asthma to be very gentle with themselves.
Yes.
Because if you're really going hard and you do a bunch of breath work and you get in that cold, the Wim Hof method can create a temporary increase in inflammation in the process of creating the general greater anti-inflammatory response. So someone can have an acute experience if they're not paying attention to the fundamental of rest and relax, deep, even breathing, making sure the body is staying relaxed, not overdoing it. You want to build the practice slowly into your body so that you're slowly developing that deeper foundational anti-inflammatory, you know, nervous system and physiology. And then you can start to increase the intensity. So one of the most important things the Wim Hof method teaches us is how to more intimately read our body's response to any given stimulus, whether it's a breathwork hold or the cold or driving in rush hour traffic. Doesn't matter what it is. It helps us to develop a greater sense of that introspective ability to understand how our body is responding to stress. And one of the most important ways the body responds to stress in our culture is inflammation. So starting to control the stress response and stay relaxed is going to go a long way to helping the adrenals to start functioning the way that they're meant to, and for inflammation to, to stop being as much of an expressed response to the various stressors of life. So, and that asthma being an acute inflammatory reaction response. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money. And I think I really am glad you brought up, we need to remember to start where we are, and it's not a contest of anything, right? And so being gentle, being patient, and looking at it as a practice and not just a performance, right? So it's this, this one time, yes, will lead, but it should lead to many times, right? So
Yes.
So continuing on as a practice rather than just a single performance, that right there is I think just right on the money. So hope that helps you there. See, let's see here. Let's see, 85. Just saw the CBD and mushroom chocolate bars on sale. Yeah, I'm excited to try them. I gotta say, man, they're good. They are good. My favorite one is that rainforest, or what it's Cloud Forest.
Cloud Forest.
Yeah, Cloud Forest. That's my favorite one. It's got all those adaptogens in it. But I tell you what, that one, and then probably the best tasting one is the one you flavor with honey. And it's that local honey that is just, it's just like, that's the one that I think really it's best that I don't have too much access to, because I was just like, So absolutely, Luke, or let's see, you'll want to make sure to Andrew, you want to make sure to come out for that stuff. Luke Warm Boverall says, is the Wim Hof method supposed to change your life? Because I've been doing it for 1 year, and although I enjoy the practices, I can see it hasn't changed anything for me, really. Thoughts? Okay. Well, okay. So we'll both speak to this. I'm sure you've got I can see in your face already, you've got something to say about that, Rob. I'll take this one first, and then you can add anything you want. Here's the thing. So when we talk about things changing our lives, it's not like it's going to make your decisions for you. It's not going to solve your problems for you. It's not going to turn you into a different person. It's not going to change any of those other qualities. When we say it's going to change your life, one of the things that I remember whenever I first started studying meditation, and then the next guy up is Jim. He's bumped up because of super chats. But basically, we'll answer this question, and then Simple Jim will get to your question. Basically, one of the things that I remember early on learning, when I was learning meditation, there was a meditation instructor that said meditation, it's people talk about how it's a life-changing thing, but I'd like to posit that it improves your life by 10%. And if you think about that, that's pretty huge. But it's not like the rest of your life is it's not 100%, but 10% is a huge, if you look at, if you were like to make a change in a course of a spaceship or a seafaring voyage, and you would change it 10 degrees, you would end up in a completely different place. So I would like to posit that it can be a wonderful tool, but it's not going to do the change for you. You actually have to be there. You have to show up to make the changes. But it can really, for me, it alleviated an enormous amount of stress so that I could make those changes. And so what would you say, to maybe piggyback or just add to what I was talking about there, Rob?
I love your metaphor with the 10, you change something 10%, or you change your trajectory 10 degrees, you will end up in a completely different place than if you were to stay on course. And the key, it's like there's such an arbitrary idea of what it means to change one's life, because
right, that's true.
It's almost impossible to know like where you would be today relative to where you were a year ago if you hadn't been doing this practice every day. So I would offer that maybe what would be beneficial is a change in perspective relative to what does it mean for one's life to have been changed. And it's one of those things that, to quantify, there's ways you can quantify, I have less stress in my life, or I'm able to, my body is able to physiologically handle the stress and not respond with, with big changes in hormones and adrenal compounds that send me out of whack. I'm able to stay in homeostatic equilibrium and keep everything working the way it's meant to. It's really hard, it's just a hard metric to answer. All I know is that you have the whole principle of a death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
And there's also life by 1,000 blessings.
Oh, I love that.
And so, you can take the principle and you can apply it in the fact that it's like every little micro moment that you have per day is an opportunity to make an adjustment. For example, I'm standing here talking to you right now.
Yeah.
And I could be unconsciously hunched.
Yeah.
And I could be in the sense of like, feeling the weight, literally you feel like a physical weight of stress or anxiety and this and that. My posture could be there. My mind could be going through those loops that help reinforce the physical behavior.
Yes.
But instead, I roll my shoulders back.
Right.
I have my feet at a nice, comfortable angle so that my hips open up and there's some space. And I feel that relaxation, that openness in my posture. My knees are slightly bent. I've got a nice stacked spine.
Right.
I keep my throat open. I'm relaxing the back of my mouth and my tongue. And these are all things that I'm doing simultaneously right now because I have slowly over time turned them into habit. The key is if you try to think the changes you want to have in your life, the part of your mind that you consciously think, it's like, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to roll my shoulders back. I'm going to do all of these things. That requires an immense amount of energy for you to consciously think about these things. But you have to do that initially. But the goal is if you do it enough, it goes into your subconscious mind.
Yes.
So whereas your conscious mind can maybe handle 12, we're being generous here, like 12 different like permutations at a time. Your subconscious mind can do thousands.
Yes.
And that's the real essence and the key is that's why we practice. We practice so that the things we're practicing, we don't have to practice anymore. They become inherent habit. They become a part of our habitual world. And then we can take that energy, that same practice bandwidth, and we can apply it to the next thing that will bring greater coherence into our life. So there's an inherent fundamental perspective here at the foundation of all of this. That is, I can practice something to a point that it becomes unconsciously competent. It becomes a part of my subconscious mind. And I can then take that energy and I can move it into the next thing that I want to practice. And my life will be improved every single day through 1,000 little blessings in the same way someone else will experience death by 1,000 cuts.
I love that.
It's a matter of perspective that makes the biggest difference there.
I love that. I mean, literally every little thing goes to change your life in one way or another. And absolutely keep practicing, my friend, keep practicing, keep exploring. There's so much that is accessible to you. So we have a super chat from Simple Jim. Just you know what? I'll make this promise to you guys right now. Every dollar that comes through super chats today will be spent on buying chocolate. So if you want to buy me some chocolate, you want to give Rob some business, give me some chocolate. We will answer questions for chocolate money. some people like do things for beer money. Today it's for chocolate money. So, all right. So Simple Jim asks, best breath work for releasing past trauma. Suggestions. I've got some suggestions. Rob, anything off the top of your head? I went first last time. You want to throw anything out there, or should I take it first? What do you think?
So I'd say, wow. So what's interesting about that question is when you're talking about like releasing past trauma, like the physiological ways that trauma kind of sits in the body. And also then you have the mental patterns that help keep that trauma locked into the body.
Yeah.
The mental emotional patterns. And then you have the physiological state that allows you to greet stress and life in general in a way that doesn't exacerbate or continue to potentiate that trauma, and allows you to slowly, naturally release it, to clear it out. And replace it with beneficial patterns
right.
that you want instead. So the short answer is that, when you have things like the box breath and Kapalabhati, the breath of fire, the Coomer, and the closely related Wim Hof method breath work, and then you have the long form breath practices, like within the Wim Hof method, you have what's called the DMT breath.
Right.
And you also have the holotropic and shamanic breathwork practices that are these long form breathworks. All of these have it's almost like a different tool in your tool belt.
Right.
And all of them have a different capacity to address a specific set of circumstances that would create or would lead to the trauma in the body, and simultaneously to allow that to be released. I highly recommend having a consistent breathwork practice, doing something like the Wim Hof method, Tumo, box breath, just really even breath, like the kind of breath that you would do when you're doing cold training, like nice, slow, even breathing. Can go so far in helping to eliminate the body's ability to continue to subconsciously hold on to stress and trauma physiologically. And then I highly recommend having a very substantial, really good practice of that before ever even diving into some of the longer form stuff out there, like the holotropic breath work, because I've found that if people dive too deeply into that too quickly, it can exacerbate trauma. If someone has a panic response, suddenly they're halfway out of their bodies and they're having all these physical sensations and they don't have any context for. And that can create an alarming response for people that can then do the opposite. It can help trauma to really dig in deeper, so to speak. So I think I love the fact that Jesse really does focus on a lot of different breathwork modalities. I'm starting to integrate more of those into the breathwork videos that I'm putting out right now. I think that breathwork, what we have right now is a pretty broad and growing toolkit.
Yeah.
And that toolkit, each tool really helps address different aspects of the whole. But great question.
Absolutely.
Really thoughtful.
And just to kind of, add a few things to that, Simple Jim, and this is not just to plug my 6-week breath mastery course, but literally that is what I would recommend. We all have, when it comes to breath work, we all have different physiological, we're all physiologically different. And there's an incredible biodiversity in all of us. So we need to respect that. And then in addition to that, we all have different needs. And really what Rob was saying, I love what you said there, Rob, because I wouldn't want to relegate working through trauma to a single technique. It really to really work your way through it, you want to be able to have maybe some breath work to address it, some breath work to maintain a proper state throughout your day. And so there's a lot of things. I work with some clients that work through trauma, and the most dangerous thing is whenever a person that they'll come to me and awesome, great, thanks, and then I never hear from them again. And it takes time to work through these things. But yeah, I would definitely agree with Rob. There are tools that can put you in the proper physiological state, and can kind of correct some of these problems. Another thing is, one thing that both Rob and I, we see a lot is erratic breathing habits and improper breath mechanics, right? And so what can happen is these things can be the result of a traumatic experience, and you're stress breathing all the time, or there's such a dysfunction in your breathing mechanics that you don't realize you're constantly putting yourself back in that traumatic experience, or at least in that state. So I would hesitate to say one specific kind of technique. I would say the answer is yes, breath work for releasing trauma, that as a whole. And so I know, I think Jim, I think you were in the Patreon club. There are multiple facets, but what you'll want to do is really the first step, I think, is becoming aware of where you are in your breath, really working on that introception. And then learning the tools that are at your disposal, and then using them appropriately. And of course, that's something both Rob and I, we work with people with that. That's one of the things we love to do. So let's see here. So hey, we need a website for Rob's chocolate. Well, I tell you what, Moose Mans, that's a pretty cool name. You can right now, if you're just, because afterwards I'll put his chocolate. I always put the chocolate down, and then I don't know if my coupon code still works, but I put it on all my videos anyway.
It should. Yeah, it should work.
So awesome. So I'll be putting that in the description box. But right now, just Google Mandala chocolates, right?
It's www.mandalanaturals.com.
Oh, right.
And but Google Mandala chocolates, it'll be the first thing that comes up.
Absolutely. It's good stuff. And you know, you won't be sad. Let's see here. Let's see another. What do you think about our chronic allergy and mouth breathing problem? By the way, if you hold your breath until it's uncomfortable, the CO2 builds up in your blood and your nose clears itself. Cool trick. It is a cool trick. And let's see, chronic. Well, I mean, I used to have chronic allergies, and breath work and cold exposure really helps me a lot with keeping those chronic allergies down. I'm not sure. So he says, what do you think about our chronic allergy and mouth breathing problem? Breathe through your nose if you can. I'm against those problems, I guess.
I think the biggest issue with mouth breathing isn't that people are mouth breathing, but it's that it's the bigger pattern, the cultural pattern of reverse diaphragm breathing.
Yeah, that's what it leads to, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So people are literally, all of their breath stays up here, and the lower half of the lungs that have 70% of the air exchange potential don't ever even really get potentiated.
Yeah.
And also expectorated. So there's not all the gunk that builds up in there because it's not actually getting stimulated at all. Mm-hmm. And then that is a physiological anxiety response. And so most people are breathing in a physiological anxiety response. So there's ways and there's methods. Like I'll teach I used to teach more like Kundalini breathwork practices. And there's entire breathwork practices that, you make a puckered O with the mouth, and it's all out of the mouth. So it's all mouth breathing, but you're still getting a full breath. The diaphragm's still functioning the way it's meant to. And actually
one of the purposes for that particular style, right, is strengthening the diaphragm. It's actually, it's to add even more of a stimulus, a training stimulus for that diaphragm muscle and those primary breathing muscles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, and then, you know, the fact that our society, you know, that we have so many allergies, I think there is a component of that is the just the fact that there's a lifestyle situation where you have people that are constantly in a fight or flight response at all times. So their adrenals are completely not functioning the way they're meant to, which means all the systems that digest and detoxify, move things through the body, keep everything clear and functional are atrophied. And when they're atrophied, when the engine's not running well and it's clogged up, then you're going to get you're going to get sensitivities and responses to things that you wouldn't necessarily have sensitivities and responses to if the body was functioning properly, if your dominant state of nervous system response is more of the ventral parasympathetic rest and relax, nurturing, like loving side, where that's your response to yourself, is a relaxed, nurturing, loving presence, which is what we deserve. It's what, you know, it's the birthright of every human being. If everyone felt nurtured, loved by themselves, and then, you know, supported in that way, then there wouldn't be as much anxiety and stress, and therefore the allergy response. And that's really one of the phenomenal things, that one of the more recent pieces of the science, the polyvagal understanding that, you know, we have the two branches of our parasympathetic, and understanding the importance of that ventral branch, the front one, that really responds to that sense of being nurtured and loved and held, and being able to give that to yourself through practices like the Wim Hof method goes so far to helping the body to come into regulatory coherence with itself. So, I mean, it literally has that much of an impact on our physiology. And yeah, like for me personally, my own previous food allergies, my own previous, you know, just what was called sinus allergies, which I really do feel were coming from exposure to certain foods and chemicals and things like that, completely gone for myself. And I've noticed other people have the same response.
Yeah, so, well, you and I share that. That was something I suffered from all the time. It would lead into infections. It would lead into just constant state of misery. And again, it comes back to living in a natural state, I think. You know, the natural state is, you know, we shouldn't have all of these dysfunctions, right? And so a lot of it does come down to this mismatch between the modern world and our natural programming. And when we can become more in alignment with that, I think we see all these benefits I didn't even expect. When it came down to my allergies, that was not even something I thought could ever, you know, be addressed in a natural way. I thought, well, it's going to be these pills forever, and you're going to do the shot now and then, or, you know, I did the things, what was it? Flonase, all that stuff all the time.
Yep. Same.
You know,
back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. And like, and then before I knew it, especially with cold training, that cold training was such a boost in just this reduction of that. And it's really, and in that way, it's been a life changer, you know? So, and if you think about that, that's your natural state is how you see the world. That's the lens in which you experience all of life, is the state that you show up in. And if you're constantly sneezing and snorting and snarling and all this stuff, you know, I mean, there is a difference there. And you know, I don't know what the percentage is, but it was pretty big. We've got a few more questions. If you got to go, you let me know. All right. Are you still good?
I got some time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I've seen a few people say this stream is awesome, and I gotta say, this is probably one of my favorite streams I've had so far. So thank you for being here. And this is the thing we don't get to do enough of when we do these weekends, because we're doing so much stuff and it's all gets crunchy. We don't get a lot of time just to kind of like chat and chill and talk. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I recommend we do this more often.
I do too. I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Just a few other things. So we did the website, and then let's see. Okay, so Rusty Gaming says, serious question for both of you. How do you balance mystical ideas and scientific ideas? Ooh, this is gonna get good. I mean, seriously, I thought, man, we've already peaked. And then maybe we'll just get a few more minutes. I think it's gonna. This is
Rusty Gamer for the win.
Rusty's killing it. He's got a few other questions that seem like they may be follow-up questions to it. But okay, so how do you balance the mystical ideas and scientific ideas? How much research do you do on mystical things before you allow yourself to believe in it, or is it all experience? Okay. Wow, this is good stuff. So one of the things I'll start on this, and I know you and I both have a lot to talk about with this because we've had conversations on this with regards to society's kind of love affair with scientism, right? The idea that everything has to be, if it's not already proven by science, you can't have any. You can't even dabble in it. You can't be, it has to be, well, if it's not scientifically, if a scientist doesn't tell you it, it can't be true, right? There's, I think, there's a real strong vein of belief that it has to be given to you by scientists in order for truth to be there. And so this is where what's interesting is so much of what we're finding out with breathwork for thousands of years was a mystical tradition, or it was just anecdotal, or it was all experiential. And for me, I think this is, you and I, we both have different positions on this, or at least everybody should probably have a different, we're all special, individuals. But for me, I do like it. I like it whenever something can be proven scientifically. I like looking at, oh, wow, that's really cool. And I think there's a real great value to science. And it's something that, I really hold science in very high regards. And generally, I'm not going to, well, let me continue on that. And but at the same time, for me, I do feel that it's important to be open and to, just kind of say, well, generally we understand. And if anyone who understands at least even to my understanding of science, which I'm not a scientist, but I dabble. Science is generally the last one to agree that something is true, right? So it's only after people have been saying, I think this is true, after so long, that science will say, okay, we can do some tests and we can verify something is repeatable. We can say these are objective markers that we can test. But I like to be open, and so when it comes to the mystical things, that's where, for me, experience is king. If I can experience something, that's when I know there's really something there. That's when I at least say, okay, at least for me, and this is where, maybe I'll get into certain things will really, they'll call me. It's almost, I feel drawn to certain things for one reason or another. And okay, I'm really getting drawn to this thing. I'm going to kind of just experiment with it and see where it takes me. And experience oftentimes is what maybe my benchmark. Now, if I were to go and say this thing is true to another person, I feel like I need to say this thing has been scientifically shown to be true, or this thing seems to work for me, right? You know what I mean? And I'm seeing Rob, nod his head. It's one of those things where I can't necessarily say something for sure is true, but I can say this has been scientifically verified. This other thing, it works for me. So that's kind of where I am with that. When it comes to how much research do I do on mystical things before I allow myself to believe it, experience, I think, is king for me. But man, sometimes I just get curious and I'm drawn in an area and I keep going in that area. And I'm ready to hear some of what Rob has to say on this, because he's got a great take too.
So, how do you basically hold the scientific understanding and the mystical understanding, and how do you justify them together into like some sort of coherent system? I think it's a phenomenal question. And for me, the first thing is science. Science is a method of exploration that creates and the things that we call truth or proof in science is really just a foundation to further experiments. Because so many of those scientific proofs, that were valuable tools for furthering our exploration, have been since proven to not be true. But they were valuable in the continued exploration, because once you have a testable foundation for something you're studying, then you can take that foundation and you can apply it to the next layers of exploration. So science as a method is fundamentally important to our world. Science, when it becomes a dogma and when it becomes it's like, this is the truth, these are the principles, this is what's real, to me is woefully inefficient. And all it really does is it creates a wall in our perception. It creates a place that will then have atrophy. If you take something that is considered a scientific fact, but is not a direct part of your experiential reality, and you say, this is my belief, boom. What you've done is you've just essentially created a wall that you're preventing synaptic connection and growth and expansion and plasticity in general, relative to those walls. So that's where the mystical experience comes in, is understanding that, the more we dive into, quantum entanglement and understanding the ways that particles can express simultaneously across time space, and just and about how the observer affects the observed, one of the fundamentals of quantum understanding. What we start to see is that any dogmatic adherence to this is the truth and this is what is real that we give to any scientific advancement is going to be convoluted relative to what's actually really going on. What that is instead is the toolkit that we can use to continue to expand and explore. And that's what I love about the science. It's like you look at the Radboud study in 2015 with Wim Hof, proved that human beings can control their autonomic processes. Now look at the branching that has happened from there. Look at how many different experiments are happening in universities all around the world, expanding from that fundamental position and discovering new things. It's like discovering a new lymphatic system in the spinal column that bridges the blood-brain barrier, because we had that Radboud study and everything that led from it branched out. So what science does is it creates a focal point that we didn't have before, that we could place our focus and place our energy and start to discover more of what's happening around us. But understanding that knowledge is great. It's going to lead to advancements. It's going to lead to greater understanding, but it's always incomplete. Yeah. And once we really just settle with that incompleteness, then we can really give our sense of truth over to our inner authority, which is where I think it belongs. I like to say that there's a lot of truth. There's a lot of truth peddlers out there. They're like, this is reality. This is the truth. If you believe something outside of this, well, you're wrong. You're delusional, misinformed, or this or that or the other. I believe that the most beneficial and like neuroplasticity and expansive way to engage truth is to let your truth be always experientially direct. And I don't believe that anyone else has the right to tell me what is real and what isn't. And either do I feel like I have the right to tell anyone else what's real and what isn't in a provably quantum world where the observer changes the observed. How can my reality, how can I impose my truth on someone else? What I can do is I can share my truth and my enthusiasm and what has experientially worked for me, because what I have is a really dialed and excellent living representation and model of my personal truths in action functioning. And so my goal there is to share that with as many people as possible, so that things that really strike home and fit, and people are like, yeah, that makes sense to me, they have an opportunity to integrate those things into their own lives. But there's no system to be imposed. It's basically sharing all of the different ideas, potentials, and possibilities so that you can take those and figure out which ones really work for you. And you can build it's building a personal truth that is always expanding and changing and growing. And the evidence of that being the world around you, the people that you're surrounded by, the experiences that you're having. And it's my belief, understanding, and experience that engaging the world in this way increases the frequency of inexplicable and mystical experience. Just absolutely insane synchronicities and connections and things just moving and coming into the world. The more open I stay, the less I hold myself down with any sort of belief that isn't directly experientially relevant to my life, the more space I have to receive a greater amount of what's actually happening. And it's a basic fact that our senses are only able to take in the smallest little percentage of the actual information that's coming in. The way that we construct the world with our senses around us is a very small facsimile of this much greater world around us. So why not create the internal and external environmental conditions where I'm able to increase the amount of that information I'm capable of uptaking. And to me, it feels like the best way to do so is to really break down those unnecessary walls in perception that are created through any sort of dogma, whether it, and science being the most common one out there right now. I think it's a wonderful tool and it's expanding lots of things, but once we become rigidly adherent to it, we're missing a lot of opportunity to grow, to innovate, and for the creative potential of our human capacity to really flourish.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that, Rob. And big thanks to Rusty for that question. Hey, guys, this has been the longest stream that I've ever done. So I want to thank Rob. And the thing is, here's the thing, we could probably keep going. But I know you've got things to do, and I want to respect your time, and I do appreciate everybody for being here. There's some questions that we didn't get a chance to answer. But if you guys would like, hey, I know Rob is up for another one of these sometime soon, and we'd be happy to do that. Generally on Fridays at 2:00 Eastern Standard Time, I usually do a live stream, and then I like to invite some of my favorite people to hang out. Rob is going to be with me. He and I guess I'm going to be with him on April 17th and 18th. We're doing the Wim Hof Method workshops. It's a full weekend. If you missed any of this, it's going to be recorded and it'll be available for watching later. But make sure to check that out. It's on my website, jessecoomer.com, or you can go to wimhofmethod.com underneath. I believe I have it under. I know I have it under mine. I don't know if you've got it. I usually just take care of it, But just go to wimhofmethod.com. Look under my profile for some of my upcoming workshops. You can find those there, or you can go to my website, jessecoomer.com. I see some questions about inflammation, anxiety, things like that. I will be coming out with my 6-week, my next session of the 6-week breath mastery course, and all of those questions will be answered in that course. So that's another opportunity for you to get a real good deep dive into that as well. But guys, thanks so much for being here. Rob, dude, I can't wait. I really can't wait. We've got all of March and part of April to wait, but it'll be here before you know it. So guys, This is limited. It is limited seating, and we want to, of course, we're always being careful due to COVID and everything. So the seating is limited. We're only allowing, I think it's like 20 people on the sign up sheet or something around there, so that we have plenty of space. He's got incredible ventilation, and we'll be doing our breath work outdoors, weather permitting. And we'll be bathing outdoors. Most of it's going to be out in nature. So it's just going to be an amazing experience. Check out the description box below for Rob's information. And if you want to do some camping or anything, if you have any questions for Rob, check it out. And then of course, head over to Convergence Lifestyle on YouTube. If you haven't already subscribed to Rob's channel, he's got some awesome stuff. And here's the thing, guys, if you're in the Patreon club, if you're in my Patreon club, you're listening to some of Rob's music, because Rob has written an enormous amount of just beautiful music that he lets me use for some of my breathwork sessions, and I'm probably going to be bugging you for more. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And we will see you guys next week. Rob, if you wouldn't mind, just stick around just for a second, because I want to chat with you for just a minute after we go off.
Sounds good.
So awesome, guys. Enjoy your weekend, man.